Well, good morning, prime timers. I normally say that because this is the prime timer Sunday school classroom for Brighton Assembly. And typically, every Sunday morning, 9:45, I'm up here and we've got a room full of people talking, trying to get them settled down. And so I say, good morning, prime timers. And usually that doesn't do any good. But we have a good time. And I want to say, this is, who would have thought that we would be doing something like this? We've got things in place here. We're in the Sunday school room. Priscilla's not here today. She normally does all the preliminary work. And just as importantly, you guys are not here. This room is normally full of primetime people. And we have a very interactive class. They make a lot of comments, and they do as much or more than I do to teach the lesson. The Bible reading is usually passed around between people, and I kind of facilitate, and it works out good, I think. You guys are not here today, so I'm going to be doing everything today, but I'm going to try to do my best, and we'll see how we get. I want to extend appreciation to Brighton for allowing me to present the Sunday school lesson to the prime timer class today. And so we're going to try, but I wanted to say a few things. I don't know who will be tuning in. Don't know if they're looking at this for the first time. So I'll say a few things that you prime timers already know, but we'll see how it works. Brent's message Sunday was a wonderful message from Romans. And he talked about God's love for us while we were yet sinners. He died for us. And he went on to say that he came so that this might be able to take place. And it took place exactly like he said it would, and at exactly the right time. I have every reason to believe that his second coming will be at exactly the right time. And you know, with this coronavirus, it has a lot of people asking questions about, well, what's going on? How do we know it? Is this the end time? And you know, let me say this to those that may not know. We use the Assembly of God teaching literature, and we just happen to be this particular quarter in the prophecies of Daniel. And we've been in this about 4 weeks, and so this is a very timely lesson because it does talk about end time. A lot of people say, well, I can't do anything about it, so what does it matter? Well, I'm going to read to you Matthew 24. Jesus had so much to say about it. I'm going to start in verse 42. He said, watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. It's true, we don't know. In fact, his word says no one knows when that will be, but we need to be ready. And I think that we see right now with this coronavirus, it virtually has the world at a standstill. I don't know if God caused it, or I don't know, but I will say this. He will use it to his good, and it will turn out to be for good. And so we're gonna look at the end time today. This is a very important lesson. We are in a lesson today that is called a prophecy about 4 empires. It's in Daniel chapter 7. By this time, we've had 3 previous lessons. And this, if you're familiar with Daniel a little bit, you know there's stories of the 3 Hebrew children in the fiery furnace, and the king looks in, he said, well, I see a 4th man in the fire. And he said, it looks like the Son of God. And then just over a couple of chapters, we see Daniel in the lion's den. We're not studying those. This is prophecies as a result of dreams and visions. And so this is giving us a little perspective. And so today we're going to be talking in Daniel 7 about the 4 empires. And let me just say that this is a time Daniel was captured when the Babylonians came in and they captured Judah. They took captives in about 605 BC. Daniel and maybe 1,000 other people, I don't know how many, were taken captive to Babylon. And during that time, about 603, just 2 years, the king, Nebuchadnezzar, had a dream. And this dream, he just didn't know what to make of it. He wanted to know what was going to happen to his kingdom. He looked about his kingdom for people that could tell him. And turns out Daniel was there, and he went into the king. He said, "King, I can interpret this dream for you, but it's not me doing it. It's God doing it, giving me the information." And so it's about end time events. I think it's timely for us today, and it was timely for the nation of Israel. They were in captivity. I'm sure they were down. They thought, "Man, what's going to happen to us?" Kind of like some of us today. What's going to happen to us? And so he is giving people a word from God on what will happen. We don't know the exact time, but in the end time, I noticed coming over here today, there's a sign up on the road. It said, "Road may flood." There's another sign. It's laying down right now, and it says, "Road closed," I'm sure. But there are signposts along the way that will tell us. We know that the end is very near. We do know that. I will say that there's a lot about the end times I don't know. But what I'm going to do is tell you what I have studied today, what I believe to be true, what I think a lot of scholars that have looked at it a lot more than I have know a lot more about it than I do, what they believe. So you're going to hear that side of it, and if you have a little bit different approach to it, that's okay. But the main thing is we need to see. So let's get into this lesson. I'm going to start in Daniel 7. I'm going to read 1 through 6 for us. This is a vision of the 4 beasts. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, so this would have been about 553 BC. Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, "I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea." This started off, and I think the 4 winds of heaven would refer to spiritual warfare in the heavens. There's so much chaos going on right now in the world, and you know that to be true if you look at anything on the news these days. And the Great Sea, he would have been talking about the Mediterranean Sea. So just imagine the sea is really rolling, and it's really a picture of people. People at the time he could see, because of everything that was going on, and principally the nation of Israel, but us too, they were in turmoil. And so he saw this, and then 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. We know that at the entrance to the palaces of the kings of Babylon, there was a lion with wings on its back. He said, "I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear." This would be the Medo-Persians came in. They defeated Babylon. And it said it raised up on one side. One side was a little bigger than the other. The Persians were more powerful than the Medes. I think that's what that means. Had 3 ribs in its mouth. It had already conquered other countries before it conquered Israel. Syria, I think, and some others. But anyway, 3 were mentioned here. They said to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard. And this would have been the nation of Greece. And said on its back had 4 wings of a bird. The beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. I think the king that did this is talking about he died at age 33, so he was very young. He had 4 generals, and they were very powerful. They had a very large area, and his kingdom was divided into 4 different places. So that's 1 through 6. So he sees this, and as I said, Daniel is one of the things that draws us to Daniel was these vivid dreams and visions. And so this is what he saw. And then let me go on and read 7 and 8. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. It was unlike the first 3. It wasn't animal-like, but he was dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it says it had 10 horns. We are getting at a point here. I need to say this because when Daniel was written, and he wrote this about 530 BC, but these events took place sometime before that. He didn't write them down immediately. And we see here that what he wrote about was prophecy. It had not occurred yet. It was 50 years till some of this took place. And get this was so exact and so perfect that people said this couldn't have been prophecy. This was written after the fact, and made to look like it was written before. But no, it was written. Daniel was a real person in real time. These events happened. They can be checked out with history. These things happen. But now the lesson is taking a turn here. It's going to start looking into the future. So it looks from maybe 605 BC up until the time after Christ comes back and sets up an earthly kingdom called the millennium time. And so this is going into a time yet in the future. Okay. So the 4th beast would have been the Roman Empire. I didn't mention that a while ago. I'm going to give you these times. Maybe they're important or not, but the Babylonian Empire was 612 to 539, I'm sorry. And then the Medes and the Persians, they came in 538 to 531. And then the Grecian Empire was 330 to 63 BC. The Roman Empire came in 63 BC to AD 476. Now I should say, if you've been here with us before, you know in Daniel chapter 2, we did study about the great statue where the king had the dream. And there were 4 kingdoms he told. And that was really what was going to take place. And then we see here now in chapter 7, he's kind of honing it down. He's elaborating a little bit more on the 10 toes that we're gonna read about here. So let me go on and read the next reading, and we're gonna skip over some verses, and we're gonna rearrange these scriptures just a little bit because we'll pick them up again in the next part that we're going to study. But the vision is going to be interpreted. So I've told you kind of what some of it is, but let's see what the angel tells him in Daniel 7:15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by me, an angel, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess it, the kingdom forever and ever. Then I wish to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet, and the 10 horns that were on his head, and the other horn which came up. There were 11 horns, actually, before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth, which spoke pompous words, words of pride, words trying to be impressive. He was greater than his fellows. He started off small, but he soon became very, very powerful, very militaristic. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. Now this, in verses 24 and 25, and tell us who these are. And there's this subjector on my part, but the 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be different from the first ones. And he shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, against God himself. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High. He shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. Here's a clue right here on what's going on. It's believed, I believe, that this 11th horn is the Antichrist. He comes out of the sea of people. It's a man. We realize that Satan has, he always has a counterfeit to what Jesus is doing. John the Baptist was a forerunner of Christ. I think there will be a false prophet come out of this too. We might read about that in a little bit. But he comes, and so this is the Antichrist that will come at the end time, right after the rapture of the church. I believe the world will be in such turmoil. Just think, every Christian on the face of the entire earth will be taken. The only ones left here are going to be non-Christians. We think it's bad now. We don't want to be here during that time. We need to get our hearts right with the Lord so that we go in the rapture. And so the rapture we know from study, and we're going to read about that in a couple of lessons down the line, called the 70th year in Daniel. We'll be reading about the tribulation time. It's a 7-year span of time. The first 3.5 years, people are going to say, man, there's so much chaos, just like right today. What are we going to do? They're looking for a person. They're looking for answers in a man. The answers are not in a man. It's in Jesus Christ. And the future, he has what we're reading now. And I think we need to understand that these lessons give us hope. That these were strong kingdoms. They came, they devoured. They just mowed down everything in their path. But they were subject to God himself. God was in control of the situation. And so we just see that they were given into his hand. So this man will arise, will come on the scene after the rapture of the church, and he will have gracious words, and people will say, well, he knows, let's get behind this guy. He makes a covenant with the nation of Israel for 7 years. In the middle of the time, he breaks the covenant. He desecrates the temple, and he sets up some temple worship, and he says, I'm God. And so this time, times, and half a time, times would be a year, times would be 2 more years. That's 3.5 times, be 3.5. We know from our study of the tribulation period, the last 3.5 years are going to be great tribulation. And so we see that is the vision that we see in Daniel. The vision is interpreted. Now, there's hope. Let me go back. I told you that there were some verses we would come back to. I'm going to go back to 7 and 18. We left that out a while ago. Let's see what it has to say. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And then, so this is hope that we're talking about. Let me read 27 and 28. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. That would be us. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. So these 4 kingdoms came, they went. Now there's a 5th kingdom that's going to be from everlasting to everlasting. And the dominion shall serve and obey him. And verse 28 says, this is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me. My countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. Now, I want to read to you here, starting at verse 9. I think I left that out, but I don't want to do that because, see, I normally have you guys read this, but let me read some of this. This is a vision of the Ancient of Days. That would be God, the judge, coming to judge all of this that's been going on. He says, I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, his wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Get this, thousands ministered to him. What we see is a courtroom scene in heaven. The judge is seated on his throne, and there are thousands, and says 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and the books were opened. He says, I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. This horn, this Antichrist comes. And he said, I watched till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominions taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. And then here's where Jesus comes into the picture. He says, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given a dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. So that is the good news. God has given us some signposts along the way. We don't understand it all. We've studied it. We see those that said road may flood, just like if we get a lot of rain. We're getting rain right now. And so, but we see that. We interpret that to mean, there's a problem up ahead. We see what's going on in the world today. We know we're getting close to the end time. And so it's been my pleasure, really, to bring to you this about the prophecy about the 4 empires that Daniel had dreamed about. Now, next week, we're going to be studying, he has another dream, and we're going to be studying that. Then we'll get into the 70 weeks, so we've got a couple of very, very good lessons coming up, and We don't know if we'll be back in here. We don't know if we'll get to do this again or not, but I certainly enjoyed doing this today. I hope you guys can use this time to your advantage to study the Word. It's all in God's Word, and try to understand what's going on. Tune in to the Brighton page. Look on Facebook. See what's going on. Pastor Brandon has prepared lots of things for us during this time. It's not as good as being together, but we're making the best of it, and we're praying for you. If you need anything at all, Prime Timers, give me a call. I'll try to do what I can. God bless.